We have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Joe here. Joe, you're the co-founder, co-CEO of Viral Nation. Viral Nation has become the place to go to if you want to do creator influencer deals and really bring these people, get them involved with your product, get your brand out there in front of their audiences, come up with great campaigns that can go viral. I mean, that's why it's called Viral Nation, of course, and stuff like that. And I think it's an incredibly important area to be in today. And to be able to build in and offer this to brands too. There's a lot of brands that need help with that. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Awesome. So how did your interest in the world of creator economy, influencer marketing, entrepreneurship, and all of that kind of begin and come together essentially to form Viral Nation? How did the idea come to you and what made you interested?
You know what? It's honestly crazy simple, Ben. I was working. I had my own startup, and at the same time, I was working as a teller at TD Bank. And I was shown by one of my buddies Vine at the time, and I remember I'd sit in my car on like breaks, or I would sit in my car waiting for my buddies to kind of carpool, whatever, and I would be on Vine scrolling, just watching these funny and hilarious videos kind of unfold, and started to what felt like build relationships with some of the creators from a fan perspective, and just loved what they were doing. Found myself showing everybody I knew, right? I was like, did you see this video? This is unbelievable. And so I was kind of like just an organic fan of what was happening there. And I had an inherent kind of entrepreneurial upbringing and itch, and it was just kind of one day I was like, you know what, like, there's a kid in a parking lot getting 600,000 views a video, and he doesn't make any money. And to me, it's like what they're doing and what they're producing and the amount of people they're influencing and this and that. I was like, something doesn't add up here from like an economics perspective for me. And I think that there has to be a way to help these guys and girls to be able to capitalize on this. So it was just kind of a crazy idea, Ben. And I sent a couple emails out to some Vine guys that had their emails on their profiles. And I just said, hey, listen, like, I want to be your agent. Like, I want to help you figure out how to make money. And it was interesting because at that time, no one had ever done brand deals really, right? So the responses I got was hilarious. It was like the first guy we ever signed was like, well, I don't make any money. So that sounds fantastic. It was like, it's funny. It was like, imagine going to like the pre-NBA era and finding a bunch of dudes in a backyard court playing, and they were insane. It's like, hey, you want to play in the NBA? Like, they're like, sure. So it was really that easy. And then from there, I started as just an agent. I basically was the business partner to influencers. So I would spend every night, all night, emailing every brand on the planet that could fit the creator, even if it was loose. And I would work my butt off kind of in the background to try to find them opportunities. And that hard work paid off. And, I was able to procure some of these deals for some of these young people really early on in their careers, and their friends saw it, and folks in the space saw it. So they started reaching out to me and saying, hey, can you do this for me too? And so it was really grassroots. And I used to be the guy who did their business deals. I'd be the guy who was their therapist. I would sleep on couches in California with them. I would, be the guy behind the video holding the phone. And, so for me, I started Viral Nation, and I got my kind of upbringing, really as a creator and as a partner of them. And that's where I think kind of the beauty of Viral Nation stems from is like, Viral Nation is not a company that was like, oh shit, this is a really cool industry and we're going to be a startup and raise money and get into it. Viral Nation is started as a literal creator. Like, I remember concepting ideas of what we were going to shoot for Vine videos in my office at 10 o'clock at night. So that was the special sauce that kind of launched us into the space. And then from there, we wanted to kind of be the stewards of the space in a way. Where the creators were really sensational, Ben, was they're creative, they're funny, they can make good videos, they can come up with funny ideas, they're special. But from a business acumen perspective, most of them are not very good at it. So I understood that if this was actually going to become a thing, someone with that side of the acumen's got to go and sit down in P&G's office and try to explain this stuff, right? I got to go sit down at Coke or Starbucks. And so that's what I started doing was, I started Viral Nation Marketing. So we had Viral Nation Talent, and then we opened Viral Nation Marketing. And the intent there was to go and do it for brands themselves and kind of connect the two. And that was in a time when no one was doing that either. So, to my earlier statement, I remember being in P&G's office and pitching them on a creator campaign. And the lady sat back then and she was like, TV built this building. And I'm like, I understand, but I'm telling you, this is really special. And so
You said
I
that.
was in the early 4 or 5, 6 years of influencer marketing, the guy getting his head punched in on behalf of the space, trying to really open marketers' eyes to the level of opportunity that exists there. And if you think about it, Ben, Unilever spending 50% of their budget this year on creators. At that time, if I said something like that, they would have thrown me in a loony bin, right? But the magnitude of the opportunity then compared to now was massive, right? So I spent a lot of my career in this space trying to be an evangelist for the creators, right? Trying to be an evangelist of social media in the sense of these brands just don't get it and I got to help them figure it out. And that's what built Viral Nation Marketing. And then we got into technology and the business kind of grew uncontrollably over the last 5 or 6 years. And, now we're really privileged, Ben. We have the largest talent agency in the world in the space, 1,100 creators across 20 different disciplines. We have Viral Nation Marketing, which is the biggest spender in the creator economy. And we do, we act as a social media agency of record for major Fortune brands, and we run their entire social ecosystems. And then Viral Nation Technology has 2 really incredible proprietary technologies we use to manage our business every day. And, really now, Ben, it's all about, the dam of traditional media is breaking. I think everybody sees that and knows that. And I have such a level of conviction that social media has become the world's media, and I'm part of it. That's how I operate every day. It's how I operate at home. It's how I operate in my life. And Viral Nation's really trying to usher that change and help these big companies go from, hey, this traditional stuff we spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on is not what it used to be. And the whole world's changed. And there's very limited companies like Viral Nation who know how to help me get there. And that's really the inspiration behind the company at this point, Ben, is social media is hard. Social media is complicated. It's not like an ad. But if you unlock it, it's unlike any other channel that exists. So that's really what Viral Nation does is we try to own the space from data and technology all the way to creators and inventory, and we try to help from the marketing side bring it all to life and kind of create a social warship, you could call it. But that's us in a nutshell, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating that you were willing to embrace this industry so early on, and it was very bare bones. I mean, obviously, it evolved as content. You had longer content than Vine, for short form too. I mean, that was a different thing. Um, when you kind of started out, how did you see this becoming valuable for brands? I mean, there was only so much time you could do with Vine videos and how long they were. What were you thinking was the kind of the way to communicate value, and how has that shifted over time?
Yeah, well, listen, I always give this example, Ben, and I think from your business and all the stuff you've been working on, you'll see this. It's for a very long time, 6 or 7 media companies ran what we saw every single day, right? Whether that be on TV, whether that be on the radio. If you remember growing up, and that's what we had, right? And that messaging was controlled by those 7 or 8 organizations globally. For me, creator's a lot less complicated than what people make it out to be. For me, it's creator is just the people's media. It's not much more than that. So I used to, when I was a young man, I loved cars, Ben, and when I was a young guy, I used to watch every road and track thing that would come out. I used to watch the British guys do the race tracks, and
Yeah.
I loved it. And now, Ben, I watch 8 or 9 car YouTubers every night, and I watch their content when it comes out. So they try to make it this big disparate thing, but the reality is, it's the people said no to the 7 companies, and I can do it. And what's interesting about that is, and no one talks about it, Ben, creators have created the people's media. Now they control it. So what's interesting is now our media globally isn't controlled anymore by things we can't see or things we don't understand. It's controlled by the people. And I can prove that in the sense that, Ben, when a car company now releases a car and the car sucks, we know. Why do we know? Because there's going to be 70 YouTube reviews from creators on the car giving their expressed opinion of us as a consumer, just like me and you. That's unprecedented stuff, right? When you think about, for instance, I love doing DIY projects and farming and building stuff, right? And it's hard. You used to have, your grandpa had to teach you, or you'd have to watch HGTV or however you'd figure it out. Now I can rebuild a whole machine by watching YouTube videos, right? And the level of education from peers is insane. So we talk a lot about the vanity of creators and they're these pseudo celebrities and whatever, but what people don't understand is the entire world shifted its media presence to its people, and now the people run it. Because, Ben, there's not a place you can't go and find community and social for something you love. Like I raise chickens for eggs, and I give chickens to like my assistant, the other CEO of Viral Nation, and I'm like the chicken guy, the egg guy. I truly can show you 5 or 6 creators who just do chickens, and I follow those guys and they help me because I figure things out from them. So like there's no bounds to what media now means, and that creates this whole new landscape in architecture, and that's what Viral Nation's built to serve. Because it's interesting, Ben, because we don't touch a single traditional element. Viral Nation doesn't have a single offering that's traditional, 0, right? But we're packed and we're busy. Why? Because we're pointed at that change versus thinking about it like, Viral Nation's in celebrity marketing. We're not. We're in the new world of how communication happens, and we need to influence those communities in a way that makes sense. And that's really difficult. And you need all these pieces, and this is how it comes together. So that's really like the piece for me that, when you think about the industry and you think about what I saw in it back then and what I see in it now, is I see complete global domination and change, and a lot of people trying to slow down that change because they need to adjust their models. And that's, I think, the crux of the creator economy. Because, Ben, I saw an article the other day that creators are overpaid, right? Well, when you shoot a TV show for, HGTV, it's costing you $300,000 an episode, which means they have to make more than that per episode. And there's SAG, and every single person involved has to get paid. And somehow they still make more than creators do, and the creator has none of those expenses. So what they're actually saying is a creator who gets 20 million individual views for 25 minutes is worth 1/100th of The Voice getting 20 million views on a Sunday. So there's still the gap of understanding the true value and the true power of these guys, but I think it's happening now at like a pretty serious clip.
Yeah, you made a lot of interesting points there, but I think that it doesn't fully make sense, the discrepancy you just talked about, because the eyeballs are the same eyeballs, that are looking at things.
Right, and somehow we've put creators in a box. Funny one, Ben, that I think you'll appreciate is like back in the day, celebrities used to think that creators were kind of like losers, right? Like when we would try to work with a celebrity, so like no, or like celebrities didn't want to do social, and like creators were just these kids in their basement, right? Now I turn on streaming and Kai Cenat is working with Kevin Hart in his basement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or Will Smith is working with a creator on a new song, because even that world has shifted to understand that, hey, I'm famous and I'm a celebrity and I have a lot of pull and I have a lot of brand value, but I don't have the audience. Now here's a young man who has 25 million people who tune into him every single day. That's powerful, right? So even the celebrities now are going, I want to be like them because they have ultimate power. They're like me with the studio attached, right? So it's a magnificent change that's very overlooked from almost every angle.
When did you feel like brands started to get this? Because you mentioned the P&G story, and how she mentioned there that TVs would build the building. How long did it take for them to kind of shift? Was it just they saw the numbers that were possible, or they saw the exposure and awareness that was possible, and then they kind of realized, or did it take a long time?
Well, I'm kind of old school in the sense that change happens in 3 ways, Ben. One is competitive tension, right? That's a big cause of the shift. So I'll give you an example. Prime Energy drink shouldn't be outselling every brand in Constellation Brands that's worth $20 billion, right? So now you're these big conglomerates and you're going, I just spent $500 million for this alcohol brand and I'm getting beat by a kid on YouTube. What is going on, right? So you have that competitive pressure, right? We call it incumbent pressure, meaning like someone's pressuring you who shouldn't be able to, right? So that starts them to think, oh my God, I need to emulate some of those things. How am I going to future-proof myself? How am I going to... So that competitive pressure is a big one. The other is personalities, right? So I deal mostly, Ben, in the world of large organizations. So take this with a grain of salt because it's different in the mid-market and the startup environment, right? Um, but brands have leadership who's been there for a long time. They have certain ways of doing things. They have certain ways of measuring things. And those people, frankly, are very difficult to change their opinion. And I know it sounds crazy because we're talking about business input and business decisions, but the reality is that people still hold the cards inside of these businesses. And if they are old school, they don't believe in it, or honestly, they just don't want to go through what it's going to take to change it, it'll sit there for as long as it can sit. Right. So sometimes what happens is these organizations change management, or they, bring someone who's been there for a long time and bring someone in who's newer and a little bit more in tune with what's going on. And that creates the change. Right. And then third is there are companies, Ben, that are just really innovative, right? They're ahead of the curve. That's what made them special, right? So when you look at companies like Walmart, for instance, there's a reason why Walmart's the biggest company on earth. And you know what? They've been working in the creator space for probably 7 years, 8 years, right? And they've been trying to figure it out and build into it. And, so there are companies who just have that natural innovation that lives within them, where they identify opportunities and they act on them. And those are the folks who are big and who are continuously leading. So it really depends on the environment and the circumstances in that particular organization. The other thing is it's industry too, Ben. Like, pharma's just figuring out that social media is important, right? But pharma and healthcare are traditionally behind, right? Even countries, right? Canada, Europe, Latin America are like 2-3 years behind the US in social, right? So there's so many things that hinder that change. But then when it happens, right? Like Unilever coming out and saying 50% of their global marketing budget is going to creator marketing.
Wow.
Is, Ben, to me, whether it's true or not, whether they do it right or they don't do it right, is a massive, massive, massive step in that transformation towards where the world is today.
Yeah, it's a huge step. How have you seen partnerships change, Joe, since you started to where you are now? I mean, a lot of creators, I think they want, of course, to figure out how to make a living. They would take these brand deals, they would get paid a certain amount. Have you seen there be a shift in what influencers are willing to do, that they want to become part of brands more? How they view kind of, the relationships with brands today. Are they more picky than they once were? Like, how have you kind of just seen partnerships evolve over time? And where are they kind of at?
It's a tough question, Ben, because this is another kind of weird part of the creator economy that not a lot of folks really understand. Is it is a very unique community all in itself with 1,000 different prongs. And each of those prongs creates different answers to that question, and they change, right? Like small creators right now are doing a lot of affiliate marketing and commerce driving, and that's new, right, to them, because before it was blogs and other things, right? The big creators are now moving into traditional, right? So Mr. Beast on Prime and these longer term engagements, the creators in the middle. So every part of the space and size changes, every platform changes, and then every vertical type changes. So those three factors of platform size and vertical combined in 1,000 different ways change the answer to that question, because it is a very fluid environment where the simplest way to put it, Ben, is creators go to where the opportunity is, and they kind of move like a herd in those specific verticals or pockets towards what's working, what's not working, where are the opportunities, what can I do? Because they're professionals, right? Like they're trying to move across it. And there's 1,000 things happening, Ben. Like, there's a lot of brands who are going from larger creators to mid-sized, smaller creators to open up more community feedback. There's different brands who are looking at creators as content engines now. That's newer than what it used to be. So there's 1,000 changes, and they happen every quarter, where folks are just adjusting this massive machine to get to the best output. And every quarter that goes by, Ben, and every year that goes by, it's like the industry's trying to optimize itself to be able to continuously grow. Like, for instance, brand safety is a massive challenge in our industry, Ben, because if you remember the Bud Light stuff that went down and some of these issues that have happened around social media, CMOs are scared, right? They're scared to spend in the category because they don't want to cut their nose to spite their face, right? And I understand that. So Viral Nation over the last 3 years built a technology called Viral Nation Secure to prevent that, so that we could keep moving past it, right? So I would say the industry is constantly adjusting to make it more accessible for brands to get more benefit so that the industry can continue to grow. It's like the whole industry as itself, Ben, is a startup in a cool way.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating you built a tool around that, and
Yeah,
you felt that that was
it
needed.
was not easy, man, but it was special because for me, it was removing a layer that was preventing brands from paying creators, which
Yeah,
hurts the creator economy. Like everything I do, Ben, is so focused on like I want to see every creator have the opportunity to make that their career. I want to see every creator be remunerated properly. So every time we can solve one of those challenges, or every time we can come up with something or offer something to a brand that unlocks it for them, it feels like a win. And you got to do that, or else it'll stall.
yeah. So what's kind of next for the creator economy? Like, how do you see it evolving now? Because it's kind of, you mentioned like you're not like a celebrity marketing, company per se, but like these people have become celebrities over
Yeah.
time since you partnered with them. Like they have gotten to similar levels, if not even bigger than many of these, stars that were considered in that, that tier before. How has that kind of changed things? Like what is this industry going to look like, 5 to 10 years from now? Because it's become so mainstream.
Well, the biggest difference between the celebrity and the creator is that the celebrity owns the creator owns their audience, and the celebrity doesn't. So, what
Mhm.
the creator celebrity dichotomy difference is that I see creators more as media companies than celebrities, right?
Yeah.
Whereas celebrities are celebrities, right? You don't go to Will Smith or to Robert De Niro and make a movie with them and they put it out to their audience, right? Like a creator is as much a media entrepreneur as they are a talent themselves. And you
Hmm.
see that there's Barstool Sports is Instagram pages turned into a sports conglomerate, right? Like so, it's interesting because it's more media than it is anything else. And what I see is like this growth of media and these guys getting smarter, and then you'll watch what happens, Ben. They'll start taking over industry, right? It's already happening. Like for instance, in the gaming industry, if Twitch streamers aren't playing the game's not selling, right? Like, so now you have creators who are actually controlling industry, right? Which is freaky and cool and like totally for the people, right? Then you also have like creators who are launching their own brands and beating the shit out of brands who have been around for 100 years. You have creators who are now figuring out how to take their content, make it long form. So creators are like, people sleep on them, but they're working, right? And the difference is that they have the ability to put out anything they want. If you look at the founder's dilemma, Ben, great idea, great plan, great team. I got to distribute that shit and people got to buy it. And that's the hard
Right.
part we all deal with. When you're a creator, the people are there, right? It's imagine me and you started our business and we had 2,000 clients already when we started, right? So
Right.
they have inherent advantage and they have relationships. So what they can potentially do based on what they want to achieve, Ben, is kind of endless. They can become the entrepreneurs. They can become the media outlet. They can be the expansion. They could be the news outlet. They could control industry. They can do these things. And by the way, Ben, they're growing at a clip. Like there's creators popping up every single day all over the world. And this isn't a North American thing. Like this is massive in Brazil, massive in Russia, massive in Germany, massive in Italy. Like, it's everywhere. KOLs in China are a part of their economy now. So it's a much bigger ecosystem shift than I think anyone gives it credit for.
Yeah. It's definitely massive. Yeah, it's just interesting how it's evolved so much now to the point where the influence is incredible. I mean, I like what you said about how they're media companies. I mean, they really are media companies in their own right, and the audience is huge. That they
But
to be
then when
able
an
to sell you.
influencer does a deal, they don't go, hey, I want to pay for your face. They don't, right? When you go do a deal, like I do deals with celebrities all the time in Barrel Nation, it's just do it on social. But when we go to it's like, how much do I have to pay for the IP, licensing their name, image, and likeness? How long do I have that for? This, that, that's the deal. When a creator gets approached, it's like, I want to talk to every single person who follows you, right? It's not
Right.
a deal where they're trying to pay for the creator to be a face of it. They're trying to
Right.
also pay for the media, right? So it's really interesting how that looks and what that does, because it's almost like they get both entrepreneurial advantages of a celebrity, but they also get to be a media CEO, which is so cool.
Yeah. Do you think that platform matters? I mean, YouTube versus Twitch versus TikTok, like just is short form less important than long form? Does it really matter? Is certain platforms better than others
Oh
for building
yeah,
brands?
platforms play the biggest role, Ben, in potential. I'd say verticals probably second, because like for instance, if you're a comedy creator versus like a doctor creator, the opportunities are very different, right? So there's that verticalization, but platforms indicate potential. So for instance, TikTok to YouTube, and the rest are in between, right? Long form content, it's just like TV. Long form content is more valuable to brands, to audiences, to watch times, to advertisers, to, right? If I want to get a complex message out, I can't do that in a TikTok. If I want to explain a product, I can't do that in TikTok really easily. So YouTubers command the most amount of money, the most amount of revenue, the most amount of sponsorship revenue, because they have long form content at their sales, and they have a very different relationship with their audience because of it, right? The polar opposite of that is TikTok, right? TikTok is very short, bite-sized content. The numbers might be huge, but the engagement and the participation is very different, right? I always say it to my friends, like I watch YouTube when I'm sitting at home, I watch TikTok when I'm screwing around, right? So it's also psychology of the consumer, right? So when I'm Tim Hortons and I want to put an ad in front of someone because I'm looking for brand awareness and I want to do something cool and trendy, I might go TikTok. But if I have a really cool rewards sweepstake program coming out and it's going to last for 6 months, et cetera, I might end up here. So platforms indicate potential, they indicate relationship, and they indicate media value. And each one has its strengths and weaknesses. And then as you move through it, right, you go to Twitter. Twitter's very similar to TikTok, right? Because it's very, very short form, bite size. Then you move into like Instagram, and Instagram regular. Then you have Instagram stories, reels, shorts. That's getting closer. Then you have Facebook video. Then you get like, so it's all about understanding the media type. And that media type identically correlates to how it works in regular media too. It's not like a weird thing that social does. It's literally identical.
Mhm. Just the last question I have, like, what's your vision now, Joe, for Viral Nation? What does it look like over the next 10 years, 5 years?
You know, man, I'm on a mission to simplify the complexity of this space now. Um,
Mhm.
I always tell people there's 275 million companies in North America who can do an influencer campaign for $1 million. There's two that can do one for 10 million, right? And it's this idea that, like, similar to the brand safety stuff we discussed, Ben, in order for the dam to break and everyone to do what Unilever did, it's not possible today because social's a real pain in the butt to scale for three reasons. One, it's still a human business. You're not buying a Facebook ad, you're working with a human. That you can't replace. You have creative. Creative is a component. So there's ideation and those pieces. Then there's risk, brand safety, content development, trends, social understanding. Like, it's a difficult, for a brand to go, I'm going to spend $100 million on TV commercials is not a big deal. For a brand to say, I want to spend $100 million in social media, that's a big freaking deal, right? You need to be prepared. So my goal is to work towards simplifying the complex and scaling what can't be scaled, right? And if I can figure out how to help these big brands make that Unilever decision, be confident in it, and be able to deliver, then that dam of media that sits up here that's been around for 25 years can start to fall. But in order to do that, we need to set precedent. We need to do it, right? And we need to have the case studies, and we need to have the business results necessary to show them that. And we're there, right? We need to have different processes, technologies, and different abilities to be able to get that done. We're there. So now it's about educating brands and figuring out how we continuously evolve so that they can do what Unilever did, and they can invest in the channel, but they can do it really smart way. So for me, Ben, it's all about, I kind of like, even from a competitive lens, I'm not a competitive guy. I don't read about my competitors. I don't really care what they're doing. I kind of focus on my own stuff. It's just kind of my entrepreneurial vibe. I've been like that my whole life, right? So for me, it's always solutioning what I see needs to be better, or what needs to go away. And the way I look at it, Ben, every day is like, is Viral Nation doing everything in its power to open up the dam for creators and for social? And as long as we're doing that, then I'm really happy, because I want to see Viral Nation get to the point in the next 2 years where we become the global media center of these major organizations, and we help creators get what they're worth and to be able to affect and change the world. And I think we're 12 to 24 months away from achieving that.
That's awesome. That's exciting to hear.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, that was all the questions that I had. I appreciate you taking the time of doing this. I think it's amazing what you've built so far and how you've really
Thank you,
helped
man.
make this space much more commercial for big brands to go and engage. And I definitely see that continuing to scale. So I'm excited to see what's next. And thanks for coming
Yeah,
on.
and Ben, good luck on your business, man. It's incredible, and I look forward to seeing it.